You know, it's such a miracle country. I say that every time I come here, but it's totally sincere. I've read all the books about Singapore. You know, I've been an admirer of Lee Kuan Yew for probably 15, 20 years. And I know that I probably like him more than some of you do. Sometimes it's hard to like the people that are closest to you, right? Get a little too close, and sometimes you see the weaknesses. But I got to tell you, this country is a miracle. And people all over the world are inspired by what you have built in this country. A first world country that literally was born less than 60, 70 years ago without any natural resources. It's amazing. Literally, something magnificent out of nothing. In philosophy, we have a term for that, ex nihilo. And it doesn't exist really in very many places, but it does here. So, if you are Singaporean, you've got to believe that anything is possible. Right? Of all the people in the world, you ought to be the easiest people to get to believe that something big can happen out of something small. There are countries all over the world. Literally, this planet is dotted with countries that have massive resources, massive advantages, and don't do anything compared to Singapore. I can think of countries like Argentina. I mean, it's massive, it's huge, it's got amazing resources, but the people don't trust the society they live in. The whole thing is based upon greed and corruption instead of being based upon the rule of law and private property and trust and structure. And because of that, you outperform them. That should tell you something about what it takes to succeed. Because the principles of success are always the same. They never change. Leo Tolstoy, the great Russian novelist, wrote a book called Anna Karenina. And the opening sentence in this great novel is this: all happy families are alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Now let's examine this idea. Every happy family is the same. They follow the same rules. They do the same things. Why? Because there is one pattern for success. Every unhappy family is unhappy in a different way. Why? Because you can fail an infinite number of ways. So what do you know by this principle? Study successful people. When you study failures, you only learn one thing. That didn't work. That didn't work. That didn't work. You could go on your whole life with that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work. But if you want to win, all you have to do is study the winner. Focus on the ones that win. Forget the ones that lose. Don't worry about making a study of failure, because studies of failure can go on forever. But once you understand the principles of success, you can use them in every single part of your life. The same principles that made Singapore successful can make another company or country successful, but they also can make families successful. They also can make businesses successful because they are the principles of success. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about Unicity. Unicity is a company that is in some ways like Singapore. It was a company that came literally out of nothing. In my case, I had an idea. And the idea was that this great company could become great again. We just had to get back to the principles of success. And we got focused on that about 7 years ago. And I remember coming on a round-the-world tour to see how ugly things were when I bought the company. You buy a company and you think you know how bad it is, and then you go on a round-the-world tour and you realize you didn't know how bad it was. I came to Thailand. And it's a beautiful country with beautiful people, but our business there was ugly. Very ugly. Even had an office that was ugly. In fact, the office that was ugly was in an ugly part of town. It had ugly carpet, ugly walls. Everything about it was ugly. Especially the profit and loss statement. That was really ugly. But there was some good-looking people there. And they believed the vision of where we were going to go. And one thing led to another, and pretty soon Thailand got smart, good, successful. They were following the principles of success. And now it's a raging success. And you guys know that because you go up there and take a look every now and then. And why do you do that? Because you're studying the pattern of success. Because you know that if it works in Thailand, it'll work in everywhere else, right? It's, I hear people all the time say, well, it doesn't work in our country. No, network marketing doesn't work in our country. It's a problem over in this country. I've heard that now in every country I've visited. Every single country. And you know what I now know? Network marketing works in any country where there are people who understand the principles of success. It has nothing to do with the country. Our business was actually thriving and succeeding in Venezuela under a crazy dictator who wouldn't allow any money to come out of the country. For 5 years, we sent product in without getting anything out because we believed in the people and the business, and that business outlived the dictator. Doesn't matter where you are if you follow the patterns of success. And I want to deal with just 2 of those patterns that I want to have you think about today. Number 1, when you're in the real estate business, there's 3 rules of success, right? For real estate, what are they? Location, location, location. It's an old joke, right? Well, in the network marketing business, are we in the leadership business or are we in the sales business? We're in the leadership business. Products sell themselves if we act like leaders. And what are the 3 rules of being a leader? Example, example, example. Right? So many people want to be leaders, but they don't want their people to do what they do. That's interesting, isn't it? That's great logic. Yeah, listen. I'm going to be over here doing nothing, but get busy. Go sponsor some people. And then come back and report to me. How's that working? Now, see, so often we get people and they come into the business and they do everything right, and their business grows and develops and they get into management. How many of you are in management? Nobody wants to raise their hand. That's good. Not even Christopher raised his hand. Nobody wants to be in management, you know, because management is one step before death. Step one, be a great follower. Can't be a great leader until you're a great follower. You've got to be able to know how to follow with exactness. There is power in exactness. Some people want to follow only the things that they want to follow. They've got a great leader who's doing it right, showing by example, teaching all the power principles. But the follower says, I'll just use the buffet style of followership. Try one of these, and I'll try one of these, and one of those, and one of these. I'm good now. That's good. How does that work? It doesn't work. No, this is a full-on entree. You know, you got to do everything. You want to be a great leader? Become an amazing follower with exactness. Then the next step is you become a leader. Why? Because you've earned the right to lead because you've followed with exactness, with precision. Now the next step is what? Management. You've now moved out of leadership and now you're managing. The difference between a leader and a manager is what? Leader does what he wants you to do. Manager tells you to go do something different than what he's doing. Now, there's a role for management. I'm now stuck in management because I'm on the corporate side. I can't always do the things I tell people about because I've got a different job. Christopher's got a different job. But you have the blessing of being able to stay in leadership unless you choose to go into management mode. If you go into management mode, you stop being the example. But not really. Right? Because all of your people have been trained to follow with exactness. And when you go into management mode, what do? Do they do what you say or do they do what you do? Exactly. They're going to do what you do. And so now that's why management's right before death. Because once you go into management, they then go into management, and then you have what's called the toilet bowl syndrome. Right? You know how that toilet bowl works? In the United States, it's circular. People jump in there, reach out with their arm, and pull the plunger. And then you just see them swirling down in management mode. Number one principle. Leadership is a function of example. If you want them to do it, you do it first. You do it more, you do it better, and you do it absolutely with enthusiasm beyond what you expect anybody else to do. When I got into this business as a distributor, I knew that I had to sponsor people to build a big business. And I sponsored 105 people on my front line. 105. Because I was so new at this business, didn't know what I was doing, didn't have a system, wasn't like Unipower, didn't have any of that knowledge that was allowing me to be successful, so I had to go out there and just sponsor anybody who had a pulse. And you know what I found out? I couldn't ever discover who was going to win and who was going to lose. You know? I thought this guy would be amazing, and he did nothing. I thought this woman would do nothing. She became a diamond. I just was completely incompetent on choosing who was going to be the winners and who was going to be the losers. I just couldn't figure it out. Even to this day, I've been in the business over 20 years. I've seen it from every angle possible. I still can't choose in my mind. I can't look at anybody and say whether they're going to win or lose. Because you can't see what's going inside somebody. Right? So you lead by example. You do what you want them to do. You do it more. You do it better. You do it faster. You do it bigger. And then they follow or they don't follow. You know how you tell a winner? They win. That's the only way you can tell. Principle number 2. Mindset is more important than skill set. Mindset is more important than skill set. Mindset is more important than skill set. You can be one of the most skillful people in the world, but if your mind's not right, it will mean that you are a yo-yo success person. You'll get a little success, you'll get up to PD and then fall back down again. Get up to PD and fall back down again. Get up to PD and fall back down again. Why? Because you got the skills, but you don't have the right mindset. You know why I know this? Because I was this for so many years. I had great skills, but I had a bad mindset. And most of us grow up and end up with bad mindsets. Our parents have never been parents before, right? There was no manual on how to raise children with a perfect mindset. And so you kind of get what you got. And I had visions, and I'll tell you a funny story. So, I'm in, some of you know Kun Joe. So, he's got a great mindset. And so, he and I were in Paris together, and he was there with his wife doing a little shopping. And I was there to work, because I was in management. And he was in leadership. So he was shopping, I was working, and we agreed to meet for lunch. And so they told me to meet them at the Paul Smith store. Now, the Paul Smith designer store, this was the flagship store right there on Champs-Élysées Drive in Paris. And so I got there first. Now, remember my mindset's a poor mindset. I'm a multimillionaire, but I still think like, at those days, I was poor. I walked into this fancy store, and I waited for Kun Joe. And the people in the store, they were the fancy French people. And they watched me. And I thought, they're thinking I'm going to steal something. They think I don't belong in here. What should I do? Where is Joe? All these thoughts going on in my head because my mindset was seeing the world different than it really was. But it was real for me. So finally I said, well, I'm going to go, I've got enough money. I'm rich. I'm going to go buy something. So I went into the men's part of the store. And I look around, and I take his shirt out, and I turn to the clerk, and he said, would you like to try that? I said, yes. And he says, well, let's don't use that one. That's still in its package. And he took it out of my hands and put it back on the shelf and went and got me a shirt that was already out. As much as to say, you don't deserve to belong in the store. That's what I felt. That's what I thought. Right? I said, never mind. Don't worry about it. I'm just going to go back here and sit in this corner over here. I won't bother anybody. I'm just waiting for somebody. Finally, Joe shows up. He swaggers into the store like he owns the place. And you know what they did? They all got up and looked at him like he owned the place too. I'm thinking, why didn't they treat me like that? He walks over to me, he says, let's look around this place. He walked over to the men's section, he grabbed a shirt, ripped it out of the package, and threw it to me. Try that one on. The clerk's like saying, okay, works for me. I'm thinking, this is a completely different place with him. The world changed. because somebody with a different mindset came into it. And I watched this happen, and it was incredible for me to see it. The stark difference between one mindset and another mindset. And I've got more money than he has. But his mindset was bigger than my mindset. And when we finished this thing, we walked out, and I'm still in a daze. I'm in a trance. I'm walking around thinking my life is completely crazy. And I said, what just happened in there? And he says, what do you mean? And so I explained what had happened to me, and he says, your box is too small. And I said, what do you mean my box is too small? I says, we need to spend some serious time, because I got to find out what just happened. And in that process, I learned about mindset and how you change it. See, you can fix skills like this, and it won't help you unless the mindset's right. And what's going on for you by being with us, even if it takes you 10 years to get successful, what's happening is we are changing your mindset. You're going to become different people in the most powerful way for being here. Oh, you'll make money with us, but that's no big deal. As you saw with me, I had the money to buy the store, but I felt like I didn't belong in it. And my mindset made them feel like I didn't belong in it. I created that world out of my mind. And somebody else came in and created a different world at the same time out of his mind. And we now, and me too, can help you change yours. Mindset is more important than skill set. And there are people all throughout network marketing, the world over, and all the different companies. They have great skills, but they don't always have the great mindset. You are so blessed to be in a group of people that focus on building the right mindset as they build the right skill set. And because of that, you have the greatest possibility of success. Unicity is committed to your success. I work so hard. I can tell you this with sincerity. There's no CEO in this industry that works like I work. I mean, I know that sounds like I'm bragging to you, but I know those guys. And I'm telling you right now, no one gets on an airplane and flies 24 hours so you can have dinner with some people because they won a contest. I do that all the time. All right? Because I recognize that what makes this company great is not me, it's you. And when you win, I want to be there. If I have to fly 24 hours to spend 2 hours with you and tell you thank you for what you're doing, I am happy to do it. Because that is what makes this thing work. Here you are. Some of you have been with us for a while. Some of you are just barely taking a look at us. I want you to know something. I'm committed. I'm committed. You know the story, right? About the chicken and the pig. There was the breakfast. Bacon and eggs for breakfast. Who was committed and who was just interested? The pig was committed, right? The chicken was interested. Now, the interesting thing about that is when you're interested, nothing really happens big in your world. But when you're committed, the world begins to change for you. Literally, God begins to move in your behalf when you get committed. When you say, I'm not going back to that life ever again. I don't care what I have to do. I don't care how hard I have to work. I don't care what people say about me. I'm not going back there again. I'm not going to live that way anymore. I am going to live the way I've seen these people live. I am going to enjoy the quality of life that comes to people who have the right mindset. I'm not going back. I'm committed. If they tell me that I go stand in the corner and jump up and down for 3 hours, I'm going to go stand in the corner and jump up and down for 3 hours. Doesn't matter. You see, I'm committed to do it. If you go tell some CEOs, listen, the key to the success of your business is that you have to honor and recognize the people. If it takes you 24 hours in an airplane to get there for a 2-hour dinner, you do it. They're going to say, you're crazy. That's stupid. Nobody expects you to do that. Yeah, they don't expect you to do it, but when you do it, what happens? You create power in the relationship. Mindset, more important than skill set. Now, I want to tell you thank you for what you're doing. I love this country you are in. Now, some of you don't live here, but I love this country. I admire it. I've shared that with you. I want you to look around yourselves when you go out. I think the Singapore citizens many times don't appreciate the miracle of this country. But if you go fly to Singapore from Cebu like I did yesterday. Now Cebu's nice, Philippines are nice. But you fly from Cebu to Singapore, and in a moment, you see the difference of mindset. You see beautiful architecture. You see beautiful, clean streets. You see structure that is defined and clear. And you see people winning. People that are just the same as the people in Cebu. There's no difference in the DNA between the people in Cebu and the people in Singapore. Not an iota. They're just as smart. They're just as intelligent. They're just as loved by God. They're just as everything. They just aren't getting the patterns of success. So when you walk out there today, think about that and say, you know what, I can build a Singapore in my own life. I can do this. I can do it. And those of you who are from someplace else, guess what you can do? Look around yourself and say, you know what, if they can do this here, you know what, I can sure do it in Vietnam. You better believe it. I got 95 million people in Vietnam, right? And 250 million scooters, right? And if I'm in Indonesia, holy cow. I guess I shouldn't say that, right? 290 million people, Indonesia. Malaysia, what is that? 30 million people. You could do it. Example, example, example. Mindset more important than skill set. And don't listen to people when they tell you it doesn't work because it didn't work for them. Remember what I said about studying failure? Turn away. Walk away. You don't have the time, you don't have the energy, and you don't have the desire to listen to somebody who just wants to tell you why something won't work. Instead, go find somebody that's winning. I got to tell you one more story. City with the brokerage firm. You go back, and for weeks and weeks and weeks, you go sit in classes. And people teach you how to be a stockbroker who have never been stockbrokers. That's the process. And after a week of that, I said, this is stupid. And so I sloughed the class, which I'd gotten very good at because I learned how to slough through school. And so I sloughed the class, and I went over to the boardroom office, the number one office of the firm. And I walked into the receptionist and I said, who's the number one broker in this office? And she said, that is Barry Bandette. I still remember this. 36 years ago. I still remember it. I says, where's Barry Bandette's office? And she says, he's right over there in that big corner office. And I just started walking. Wait, you can't go over there. You can't bother him. I just didn't even listen. I just kept walking. Because I wanted it. Why would I let the secretary stop me? How many of you have been letting the secretary stop you from getting your dreams? They're a secretary, and you're letting them stop you from getting your dreams? I just kept walking. I knocked on his door. He said, come in. I went in. I said, listen, I'm a trainee, and they don't know what they're talking about. Do you mind if I just sit here and listen to you? He says, you keep your mouth shut. You don't tell anybody the names of the people I'm talking on the phone, and you can sit there, kid. And I sat there week after week, and that's where I learned how to be a broker. By watching somebody that was a winner, and then patterning my own model after that. In that situation, it was tough because, hey, he had no reason to help me other than a good heart. But in our business, our whole compensation structure is based upon wanting to help you. Every one of the people that are winning big in this company will share everything they have with you because it benefits them when you win. God bless you, folks. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're serious. I hope you stay focused. I hope you look past the garbage that's going on in the mindsets of others and get the clean mindset that we're offering here. God bless you. Thanks very much for letting me do